We are pleased to be joined by Jackie McClaskey, who is the Secretary of Agriculture for the state of Kansas. And we want to spend a few moments talking about kind of the state of agriculture in Kansas. Madam Secretary, thanks for joining us. And we're talking to you in the new home of the Kansas Department of Agriculture in Manhattan.
We finally got the move completed. We moved last month, so we've been here for literally about 4 weeks. And we're still waiting, as you saw when you came in the door, for some furniture to arrive and a few boxes now and then to get unpacked. But the most important thing is we got our employees here and feel like we're kind of back to business as usual, which is really exciting.
Probably in our time this time around, we're going to spend an awful lot of it talking about the Water Vision team. You say you've only been in this office a few weeks, and some of that time has been spent listening to Kansans. Maybe give us a couple of highlights.
Sure, absolutely. You're right. I think, out of the 28 days-ish that we have been in this building, I have maybe spent 4 or 5 here, and most of that time has been out talking to folks across the state about the Water Vision. Just a week and a half ago, we completed a 12-stop, 5-day tour, and during that trip talked to over 800 Kansans and have had the opportunity by phone and email to be talking a lot more since that tour completed. Mostly what we're hearing from people is as we look at what our water needs are across the state, whether those are issues on the western side of the state or the eastern side of the state or somewhere in between, that we really need to take a regional approach. And we've heard all along, we've known all along that there wasn't a one-size-fits-all solution for Kansas water issues. But at the same time, even from the perspective of setting goals and how we approach it, that message was really clear that we look at things regionally. We also heard a lot, from folks as we anticipated that we want to try voluntary approaches, but we also heard that the state really needs to step up and help find ways to make those voluntary approaches work. I think it really is something of interest as well that people on the eastern side of the state want to talk about the Ogallala. People on the Ogallala want to talk about the reservoirs. And of course, there are a number of other areas in the state, but may not be served by any of those, such as the Equus regions and others, where their issues are really unique.
Was there one thing that maybe stuck out or any sort of a general theme at all the stops?
That water is important, that conservation is important, that we can't underestimate the importance of water for the state's economic needs. And the exciting thing for me is that people get that, apparently and seemingly from corner to corner of the state. But at the same time, that if we don't take action now, then we are not going to be where we need to be in the future.
We're talking with Jackie McClaskey, the Kansas Secretary of Agriculture. We'll have more in just a moment. You're watching the Kansas Ag Report.
This segment brought to you by Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. Farmers Insurance, your best protection against the unexpected. Call Agent Dan Key at 785-408-5459. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. Blue River Traders, the finest selection of Western-style furniture for your home. BlueRiverTraders.com.
We're talking with Jackie McClaskey, who is the Kansas Secretary of Agriculture, talking about the Water Vision team and this whole situation. Now we've given the general overview. Let's talk specifics. How many parts are there to this Water Vision?
Well, we've talked a lot about what a vision means, and it does start with a general vision statement to kind of give us an idea of where we want to accomplish that talks about Kansans being committed to long-term water needs in our state, followed by a more mission statement that gets into how we as a state can start to enact that vision. And then it gets into the good stuff. That's where we have 4 different themes of water conservation, water management, new sources of supply, and crops and technology. And within each of those are specific action items and strategies. And there are over 170 action items within the whole document. So as we went out and traveled the state, and as folks have had the opportunity to actually read the vision document, there's a lot of opportunities to provide input, to tell us what should be included, what shouldn't be included, what we missed, what's more important, what pieces should be prioritized. So that's really contains a lot of information.
And the process is kind of that living document. You still are seeking input from all Kansans and all stakeholders, not necessarily agriculture, but everybody's affected by water.
Absolutely. Every citizen in the state of Kansas is affected by water. Again, why our vision statement starts with the word Kansans. The document is a living document. This was actually what we called a preliminary discussion draft. It was intended to include all the different feedback that we've heard throughout the last 6 or 7 months when we've been talking to folks about across the state, and then actually give them something on paper to react to. So we took copies to all the tours that we did, and we also have it online. It's actually hosted on the Kansas Water Office website at www.kwo.org. So folks can get on there, pull it down, read it, provide input, or if they would like us to come out and talk to a group they're a part of, to give us more input, that's certainly something that we're interested in.
And then once all these comments are gathered, kind of a final draft or a final report will be released later this year, correct?
That's the plan. Certainly, we've already been getting a lot of feedback and input, and it's going to take us some time to get through this, but we're anticipating that the next draft is going to be introduced at the Governor's Water Conference, which will actually be held here in Manhattan on November 12th and 13th. And probably at that stage, it's still going to be something that we're looking for input on. And we'll see then maybe a more final draft even before we enter into the legislative session.
We're talking kind of that state of Kansas agriculture right now. Wheat harvest wrapped up. Some areas had good wheat, some not so much, but the fall crops look good. What are you hearing from producers?
Well, you know, I just actually had a conversation with the governor a few days ago asking about the average wheat crop in Kansas, and it was actually a little higher than some people were expecting. At least the preliminary numbers we've heard is maybe 32 bushels. But then I've also talked to folks who still have their wheat in the field. So I don't even know that we can call wheat harvest done just because of some of the moisture we've had in some parts of the state. But the moisture that maybe kept some of that wheat in the field is also what's going to lead to a much better fall crop, and hopefully we're going to see more areas of the state moving out of the drought for a sustained amount of time. I think people like to say it rained, so the drought's over. We know that that's not quite the case. We really want to see that moisture return to what we in Kansas depend on.
Madam Secretary, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Jackie McClaskey, who is Secretary of Agriculture for the state of Kansas, has joined us. Reporting for AgView, I'm Ken Rahjes. You're watching the Kansas Ag Report.